Hi everyone, it's April again. Welcome back to my channel, and if you're joining me for the first time, welcome. Today I want to talk about eating, and I hope that this is going to help some parents out there and maybe some children out there that also have problems with eating. It's actually not very uncommon. I was born with a birth defect. I am missing the muscle at the bottom of my esophagus called the cardia sphincter, and so I don't have anything to hold the food in my stomach, so I vomit very easily, and always did. And they found this out before I was 24 hours old. I couldn't keep my formula down in the hospital, and so the doctors checked me out and found I was missing this sphincter muscle, and so they started to water down my formula until my mom had to put 3 to 4 times the amount of water to formula ratio to make it thin enough for me to tolerate it. And as I grew, one of the milestones that I was very delayed in, as I said in my last video, I was delayed in walking and talking and potty training and things like that, but I was also delayed in being satisfied with liquid. Most babies, by the time they're 6 or 8 months old, liquid just is not enough anymore, and so as moms and dads, we introduce solid food like rice cereal and baby foods, and I just didn't outgrow that satisfaction with liquid until I was about 10 years old. Up until then, if my mother gave me my milk or tea at dinner, I would drink that and I was satisfied. I did not want to eat. And it was really odd. I would vomit 3 to 4 times a week. In the middle of the night, I would get up and vomit, and I did this up until I was in my teens. My mother kept a food journal trying to figure out why I threw up and, trying to find the food that triggered the vomiting, and she could never figure it out. The food journal never put 2 and 2 together and came up with 4. But when I was a teenager and began to spend more time with my peers, we would go out to eat, and I would get to choose what I ate. And it was interesting as I look back to see that being Southern, I was born in the South to a very Southern mother, she fried everything. And it was the fried food, it was the fat in the fried food that irritated my stomach, and I just could not tolerate it. And so that's why I would vomit. The few things that she made that weren't fried, those were the nights I would eat everything on my plate, and I wouldn't throw up in the night, but we could never figure that out until I was older and began to eat what I chose to eat. And of course, as an adult, I don't eat anything fried, or very little fried food, and when I do eat something fried, I just eat a small amount of it and it doesn't make me sick. So I began to throw up less and less through my teen years, and that was good because I was so thin. When I graduated from high school at 17 years old, I only weighed 65 pounds. And people used to say, "Oh my gosh, you're so skinny." And just on a side note, that's a very rude thing to say. That's as rude as calling someone fat. So please don't use the term skinny. It's not a compliment. We're tiny, we're petite, we're little, and all those are good words, but skinny is hurtful. And so that's just a side note. I'll give you that for free. But one of the things I want people to realize about their children is it's not always about them being picky eaters. Sometimes it really is about their body saying, "No, I do not want what is in front of me." And there's a reason for it. Now, if your child is one of those picky eaters that only eats ketchup, okay, now you've got to deal with getting them to try new things. But I would recommend that you try the same food cooked different ways. And cooked a certain way, they may be happy to eat it. You may even consider pureeing their food if they're just eating ketchup. I know one child that just ate ketchup. That was about all they could get him to eat, and so they began to puree his food, and he ate more. Why? I don't know. My stepdaughter, when she had her son, and started introducing solid food to him at 7 or 8 months old, he refused carrots. And I mean, he would not eat carrots. You could put a scoop of carrots on his spoon and a scoop of peaches in front of it, and he would spit it out. As soon as he tasted the carrots, he would spit it out. Now, this was an infant. An infant. And he knew carrots were not good for him. He is now 9 years old, and he still doesn't eat carrots. But she called me, and she said, April, what do I do? He won't eat carrots. And I said, don't make him eat carrots. There's something about the carrots that his body's rejecting. If he's 8 months old and knows that he shouldn't eat carrots, then listen to his body. Let his body tell him what is right and what is wrong. And he's a very good eater. He actually eats very healthy, but will not eat carrots to this day, 9 years old. And so there's that. And the other thing about my eating is if I had something to drink, I was satisfied. If it was fried food, I was going to throw it up. But my aunt has always commented, she used to babysit for us after my dad got out of the Army and we moved to Georgia. She would babysit us, and they had a house with a large crawl space underneath. It was deep enough for my uncle to stand upright in, and he is about 6 feet tall. And their bathroom floor, I would lay on her bathroom floor with my dress pulled up and my bare belly laying on their tile bathroom floor for hours. And she never understood it. And we've talked about this even in the last few years, about how I would lay on her bathroom floor and wouldn't move. I would sleep. I would just lay there enjoying that cold, cold, cold floor. Because of the crawl space, it was ice cold, and it felt so good because the inside of my stomach was so burning hot. And so now I know, because I watched a YouTube video by Maggie Baldwin, which I will try to link her video in the description box below. I don't know how to do that, but I'll do my best. But she did a video on disordered eating, and it was life-changing for me. So thank you, Maggie Baldwin. And I want you to check that video out if you have a child that just refuses to eat a certain food or certain foods. Or sometimes they'll be eating fine for weeks at a time, and then bam, they refuse to eat it all. There's a reason for it. And so, anyway, I loved that cold bathroom floor at my aunt and uncle's house. It was just the most heavenly place for me. And I never got sick at her house because I could cool down the inside of my core temperature on that cold floor because of their crawl space. But my mother never understood why I wouldn't eat. She tried everything. Keeping a food journal when I would throw up, which I would 3 or 4 times a week. And we could never find a trigger food that would make me sick. But what it turned out to be is fried food. I couldn't tolerate the fat in fried food, and I was raised in the South by a Southern mother and a Southern father, and so it was the fat. And now I hardly ever eat anything fried, and when I do, I only eat small amounts. But I don't fry anything myself. It's usually something that we go out to eat, and I might get French fries with my meal. But more often I would get a baked potato or something like that instead, because I don't tolerate fried foods even now. But through my teen years, I began to throw up less and less often. Instead of 3 or 4 times a week, I was throwing up 3 or 4 times a month, because more often than not, I was choosing what I ate when I would go out with my friends. And so I ate less fried food, and I was sick less often, and that really is what it turned out to be. So listen to your children when they don't want to eat, or if they don't want to eat a certain food. I worked with a man years ago that told me about growing up on a farm in Idaho. They had chickens and cows and pigs and, all the standard things of a farm. And they had fresh eggs, and they were forced to eat eggs every morning for breakfast, and he did not like eggs at all. But his dad would actually spank him if he didn't eat his eggs. And as an adult, he had an allergy test and found out he's allergic to eggs. If his parents had listened to him, they wouldn't have forced him to eat something that made him not feel well after he ate them. so there's some value in what your children are telling you in their eating or not eating, in their eating patterns. And I think the lying on my aunt and uncle's bathroom floor is a big part of that, because it was so cold on that floor and it felt so good on my bare tummy. And I never could explain it. When I was a child, I couldn't say, well, if I don't eat, then I won't get sick, but if I eat this fried chicken, I'm going to throw it up. I never knew how to articulate to my mom or my aunt or whoever else was trying to feed me, the school. At kindergarten, the only thing I would ever eat is if they made red Jell-O, and they would make red Jell-O and put Cool Whip on top. And that I would eat, and that was the only thing I would eat. And they served that maybe twice a month. Otherwise, I never ate anything for lunch at kindergarten. And my mother wasn't able to pack a lunch for me. They didn't allow that at the kindergarten that I went to, because back then kindergarten was not part of the public school system. And so, and when I started school, regular school in first grade, I took my lunch to school. And I always ate my lunch because my mother packed what I wanted. And so I would eat. So if your children are indicating to you in any way that there's a certain food that they won't eat, don't make them eat it. There's a reason why they don't want to eat it. Or if they eat fine for 2 or 3 or 4 weeks and they have good healthy appetite and they're eating healthy food, and suddenly they say, nope, I'm not eating anymore. Listen to that. There's something wrong. There's some reason why your child won't eat. And so that's what I wanted to tell you today. One more thing I had to overcome in life is learning how to eat, because I had to eat to live. And I still don't eat much. I eat 6 or 8 meals a day, and I eat specific things per meal. Like one meal I will eat protein, and another meal I'll eat fruit, another meal I will eat my veggies, another meal I will have my carbs, things like that. I don't mix my food groups, and I still get a balanced diet. I still don't weigh much. I'm 4'8", and I weigh about 105 pounds, and I still don't eat a whole lot, but I do eat. Sometimes I have to force myself to eat, because still at 55 years old, liquid will satisfy my hunger. So I have to make sure I need to eat, not have a soda to satisfy that hunger pain. So just listen to your children, and if you do have a child that has difficulty with eating, keep a food journal and see if you can find a trigger. And if you can't, don't write down the foods, write down the form of preparation, because that could be where it's going wrong. You might be able to get them to eat carrots if you fix them in a different way. They may not want them raw, they may not want them cooked, but they may want them pureed, or they may want them in something like a soup or a stew or even a casserole. It's just the way it's cooked that is causing them to not want to eat it, because I love chicken, just not fried. And I love potatoes, just not fried. So that's what I wanted to talk about today, was eating. And I hope this video helps someone out there figure out how to get their children to eat, and maybe figure out your eating issue and why you have disordered eating. And again, I will try to link that video from Maggie Baldwin in the description box below about disordered eating. She describes it so much better than I do. But I have overcome and gained a normal amount of weight. I'm within my BMI for the first time in my life. I was probably in my late 30s the first time I hit a normal BMI. So yippee skippy, I've learned how to eat and not be sick and throw up. And I have Crohn's disease, so I have to eat different anyway, but that's another story for another day. I've already made a video about my Crohn's disease. But thank you for stopping by and watching part 2 of Getting to Know Me. I hope that you've enjoyed it. I've enjoyed sharing with you, and I will do a part 3 because there's more. I hope you have a great day, and don't forget to laugh.